Welcome back to the Great and Spacious Building. For decades, if you drove through the heart of Utah County, you might have noticed an unassuming cinder block entrance built into the red earth near the town of Salem, Utah. It's marked by a simple sign, the Koyle Mining Company relief mine. To many, it's just a relic of a failed frontier enterprise, a curiosity. But to a dedicated, faithful few, that hole in the ground represents a profound, divinely appointed promise, a vast treasure to be unearthed before the second coming of Christ. This is the story of the relief mine, also known as the Dream Mine, and the man who founded it, Bishop John H. Koyle. Over the next 4 episodes, we're going to dive deep into a remarkable, complex, and sometimes bizarre chapter of 20th century Mormonism. This story is not just about a mine, it's a window into the persistence of folk magic, prophecy, and charismatic authority outside the official channels of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And we will see it provides a crucial comparative lens for understanding the beginnings of the church itself. Today we begin with the man, John H. Koyle, and the radical revelatory experiences that launched a life of controversy in and out of the church. John Hiram Koyle was born on July 14, 1874 in Spanish Fork, Utah. Like many of his generation, his family history was intertwined with the early drama of Mormon settlement. His father was a polygamist. His mother, Hannah Koyle, was a devout woman whose piety and belief in the supernatural would shape the young Koyle in the years to come. He was a man of the earth. His life was centered on farming, and he was known for being a hard worker, a devoted husband and father, and a faithful member of the LDS Church. So where did the prophecies begin? Koyle's prophetic vocation began, as it so often does in the Mormon tradition, with a singular transformative vision. It occurred on August 16, 1894. Koyle was just 20 years old at the time, shortly after he'd been given a calling as a Sunday school teacher. The standard biography, chronicled largely in Ogden Kraut's book, The Koyle Relief Mine, emphasizes that Koyle was a humble, faithful young man, utterly unprepared for what was about to happen in his life. So let's look at this source that I just mentioned. The most complex, in-depth biography of John Hiram Koyle comes from Ogden Kraut, who was a fundamentalist Mormon. And according to Kraut's account here, I quote, on the 16th of August 1894, John was mowing hay on a 10-acre piece of lucerne field that suddenly he was taken ill. He dropped the lines and fell to the ground, crying out, "I'm going to die," unquote. His family brought him home and the doctors examined him, but could find no medical cause for the distress. After a night of intense pain and suffering, Koyle was alone in his bedroom when the room suddenly filled with a bright light. Kraut describes the experience as follows, I quote, "He heard a voice say, 'You are not going to die.' He was told that he had been chosen to perform a great mission and that his suffering was a preparation for it. A personage appeared who Koyle identified as the Savior and proceeded to give him a panoramic tour of the world's future," unquote. This is the Genesis moment, like Joseph Smith's first vision or even Moses' encounter on Sinai. Koyle is taken from his mundane occupation of farming to receive a comprehensive prophetic commission and an expansive view of history. So what exactly did he see? Koyle was shown a terrifying vision of the future. A great world war, a massive economic collapse, and a scourge of pestilence. He saw the Latter-day Saints scattered and impoverished, facing a desperate future. But then the vision pivoted to his unique solution. He was shown a mountain described as resembling a beehive and told that within it was an immense treasure of gold, silver, and other minerals, which would be preserved and revealed specifically to relieve the saints in the dire days of the economic and political collapse he had just witnessed. The personage gave him clear instructions, which Koyle would follow faithfully for the rest of his long life. A voice said to him, "It is for a future mission which you must perform. The time will come when the Latter-day Saints will be starving. The church will be in debt and unable to help them. At that time, you will take the treasures from this mountain and relieve the poor and help the church out of debt." The vision, in essence, gave Koyle three things: a clear vocation. First, he's a modern-day seer and prophet. Second, a concrete task: dig the mine, secure the treasure. And third, a temporal purpose for all of this. The mine was a providential relief fund for the Latter-day Saints in the face of future great tribulation that they would undoubtedly face. This is a powerful beginning for anyone. Koyle is now operating on an entirely different plane than his neighbors, these farmers. He's a man with a secret commission from God to save his people that he goes and worships with every single weekend. Now, as an empirical historian, this is where I need to stop and place Koyle in proper historical context. His visions, his claims, and his modus operandi are not anomalies in Mormonism. They are, in fact, perfectly consistent with the early years of the church. Think about Joseph Smith. His prophecies and revelations often focused on temporal matters: the establishment of Zion, the construction of temples, the need for banks and stores, and even the precise locations of where treasures would be found, as in his early treasure digging adventures. The story of the relief mine is a 20th century echo of the 19th century folk magic that saturated the American frontier, a magic that Joseph Smith participated in and inherited. Koyle's commission to dig for a divinely protected treasure is essentially a spiritualized version of a common 19th century practice, that being money digging. This is why Koyle's vision did not immediately alarm his local leaders. He was well respected. In 1908, his 14 years after his vision, Koyle was called and sustained as the bishop of the Leland Ward in Spanish Fork, Utah. For 8 years, he served faithfully, a respected local ecclesiastical authority and a private visionary on his own time. This dual role, bishop and seer, is critical for what he's going to develop into. In his own mind, his vision was complementary to his church duties. His project was called the Relief Mine because it was literally intended to relieve the poverty that the saints would face. It was church work, just on a grander future scale. And he acted on it. In 1894, Koyle, with a few close associates and believers, began the work. They incorporated a company, the Koyle Mining Company, in 1909 to provide a legal structure for raising funds. The method of financing itself was extremely unique. It's noted that shares in the mine were sold, but the capital raised from these shares was not for profit. It was for the work of the Lord. That's how it was presented to investors in this venture. To quote from Koyle himself, the money from the sale of shares was used only to finance the digging. None of the principals or shareholders could expect a financial return until the ore was found. Now coming from Kraut, Bishop Koyle and his family were only to receive wages for their labor, just like any other worker, unquote. Koyle wasn't looking to get rich here. He was following prophetic instruction as he saw it. But here's the empirical reality that an apologist must avoid. The LDS Church, for much of its history, was decentralized. Local authorities like Bishop Koyle often enjoyed tremendous latitude to organize community projects based on revelation or spiritual promptings. The early 20th century was a time when folk religion and charismatic experiences still thrived on the local level, even as church leadership in Salt Lake City was centralizing and professionalizing, or what we would call the routinizing. Koyle was a transitional figure in the church, a man with 19th century prophetic vision operating within a 20th century increasingly structured church. This tension would eventually become explosive. Koyle's prophetic announcements were prolific for what they were. They weren't limited to the mind. They covered world events and the political economic landscape. He was, to many of his followers, seemingly a modern day Nostradamus with a distinctly Latter-day Saint flavor. His most consistent and galvanizing prophecy, however, was about the timing of the treasure that is supposedly in this hill. The gold, he said, would not be found until the world was truly on the precipice of collapse, until the church itself was financially strapped. His followers believed the mine was a crucial preparation for the second coming. He established an elaborate system of signs to mark the progress and timing of the work. For example, he prophesied that the mine's tunnel would collapse just before the final strike, symbolizing the world's collapse into chaos before its eventual salvation with the second coming. And what about the economic prophecies? Koyle was a product of his time. He lived through the Panic of 1893 and the economic turmoil that led into the Great Depression. Therefore, his major economic prophecies were consistently anti-establishment and anti-bank. To quote from Ogden Kraut's biography, Koyle taught that the gold standard was necessary for the survival of the country. He prophesied that a massive monetary collapse would occur, where banks would close and paper money would become worthless. Gold would be the only stable currency left. And quote, I feel like I just read a ad read for some sort of gold company from a Glenn Beck podcast, but we'll leave that there. This prophecy became the central tenet of the movement, drawing in people disillusioned with the modern financial system. To join Koyle was to inoculate oneself against the evil of Babylon's financial systems. This brings us to the key difference between Koyle and the institutional church of the early 20th century. The church was trying to integrate itself into mainstream American society. It was busy emphasizing its business prudence, fiscal responsibility, and also civic engagement. Koyle, on the other hand, was an economic millenarian predicting the complete and catastrophic failure of the American system and offering a radical, divinely sanctioned alternative. He was essentially selling a spiritual insurance policy, a way to survive the coming storm by investing in God's chosen project, Ensign Peakish. His followers, who came to be known as miners or Koylites, believed Koyle had a direct line to heaven, superseding the pronouncements of the Salt Lake prophets on temporal matters. As his biographer notes, Koyle's life became defined by this single unwavering commitment. I quote, Bishop Koyle never wavered in his testimony concerning the vision he had received. He endured opposition and ridicule all his life. He was willing to be tried by the church, to be excommunicated, and to spend time in jail rather than deny the mission he had been given. End quote. He was a prophet first and foremost. His calling as a bishop was a temporary assignment that he would eventually be removed from. His commission to the dig was eternal. So we leave our first episode with a clear picture of John Koyle, a devout, locally respected, yet independently commissioned seer. He was an Orthodox church member who received an utterly unorthodox temporal mission that directly challenged the emerging professionalism of the LDS Church. The fundamental tension we have established is this: whose authority prevails in the kingdom of God? The institutional structure of the church presidency, or the direct personal revelation of an individual called a bishop in this case? In our next episode, we'll follow Koyle's project into the mountain. We will look at the decades of arduous, costly labor, the strange geological phenomena reported by the miners, and the astonishing predictions he made about the tunnel's progress. We'll examine the sociological and financial realities of the relief mine, and how Koyle built a dedicated, multi-generational following based on a 20-year-old vision. The drama begins to ramp up in the 1930s as the Great Depression validates Koyle's economic fears, bringing thousands of disillusioned saints to his banner, and finally forcing the institutional church to take action against the prophet of Salem. We're moving from the vision to the void, the hole in the ground that consumed lives, fortunes, and the attention of the highest levels of church leadership. If you enjoyed this deep dive today, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you can be updated on future videos. Like today's video, leave a comment below. Tell me what you want to see in upcoming videos. Until next time, keep on digging, and I will see y'all next week.